Have you ever noticed that some Chinese characters have three little dots on the left side? For example, you'll see them in characters like he or hai. Those three tiny drops of water aren't random. They're actually an important part of the character structure. Hi everyone, I'm Ellie. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to look at a group of Chinese words that all share the same special radical. As you might know, each Chinese character has its own building blocks, and one of those building blocks is called a radical, 部首. Radicals can tell us a lot about a character's meaning or category. They help us understand how different characters are related and make it easier to remember new words. The radical we are talking about today is one of the most common ones in Chinese. It's called the water radical, and in Chinese it's known as 三点水, which literally means 3 drops of water. This 3-drop pattern comes from the character 水, which means water. You'll find it in many everyday words, especially those related to water, liquid, or anything that flows. Alright, let's take a look at some of the most common and useful Chinese words that all share this 3 drops of water radical. Are you ready to dive in? Let's get started. Our first word is 河, which means river. Since we just learned that the radical 三点水 is often related to water, this one makes perfect sense, right? A river is a natural body of water, usually long and flowing, that travels through the land. It usually follows a fixed path, what we call a riverbed, and it often leads into a lake, another river, or the sea. In Chinese, 河 is used to talk about natural rivers, not small streams, but the larger waterways you can see in nature. Let's look at a few common words and phrases that use this character. For example, we have 黄河, which is the Yellow River, one of the most famous rivers in China. You might also hear 河边, which means by the river or riverside. It describes the place right next to the river. And another word, 河流, simply means river or stream, focusing on the idea of flowing water. Here is an example sentence with the word 河. 河里有很多鱼. There are many fish in the river. Let's break it down a bit. 河里 means in the river. 有 means there is or there are. 很多 is many. And 鱼 means fish. So altogether, it paints a simple picture of a river with the water flow and the fish swimming. Alright, now let's move from the river to something even bigger. Our next word is 海, which means sea. The word 海 refers to the large body of salty water that covers most of the Earth's surface. It's much larger and deeper than a river or lake, and it connects to the ocean. When Chinese speakers use the word 海, it often carries a beautiful image, wide, calm, powerful, and full of life. If you look closely at the character, you'll see our familiar water radical on the left, so you already know that the word can be related to water. Let's look at a few example words with this character. We say 大海, which means the sea or the ocean. If you go near the shore, that's 海边, the seaside or the beach. And 海水 means seawater. Here is an example sentence. 我喜欢去海边散步. I like to take a walk by the sea. This is such a peaceful sentence, right? You can almost picture yourself walking along the beach, hearing the waves, and feeling the wind. 喜欢 means to like. 去 to go, and 散步 means to take a walk. Now that we've talked about rivers and seas, let's look at something a little different. Our next word is 油, which means oil. Even though oil isn't exactly water, it's still a kind of liquid. That's why it shares the same radical, those 3 little drops of water. The word 油 can mean different types of oil, depending on the context. It can be 食用油, cooking oil, that we use for frying food, or 汽油, gasoline, the kind of oil used for cars. And there is also a really common and interesting phrase, 加油. Literally, 加 means to add. So, 加油 means add oil. But in Chinese, this phrase is often used to cheer someone on, kind of like saying, come on, or you can do it. So, when your friend is about to take an exam or run a race, You can say 加油, come on, keep it up. Now let's look at our main example sentence. 炒菜要放一点油. You need to add a little oil when stir-frying vegetables. 炒菜 means to stir-fry dishes. 放 is to put or to add. And 一点 means a little. So the whole sentence reflects something people say naturally in daily life, maybe when giving cooking advice. Next, let's look at another beautiful word that also belongs to the water family. 湖, which means lake. A lake is a large, still body of water surrounded by land. Unlike a river, which keeps flowing, a lake is calm, peaceful, and usually stays in one place. So when you think of湖, imagine the quiet surface of the water, maybe reflecting the mountains and the sky above. That calm, mirror-like image is exactly what this word describes. Now let's see some words with this character. When you're reading or listening to Chinese, you'll often hear 湖 in phrases that describe the beauty of nature. For example, 湖水, which means lake water, and makes you imagine the clear, still surface of the water. Another common word is 湖边. That means by the lake or lakeside, the place where people often walk, rest, or enjoy nature. Let's look at our example sentence. 我们在湖边野餐. We have a picnic by the lake. 我们 means we. 在 means at or in. And 野餐 means to have a picnic. You can imagine this scene, sitting on the grass, the water shining under the sun, and maybe a gentle breeze coming from the lake. Now that we've talked about rivers, seas, and lakes, let's describe what water actually does. Our next character is 流, to flow. The radical shows us that the word is also from the water family. 流 is a verb. It describes movement, the way water moves from one place to another. We can also use it metaphorically for anything that keeps moving or changing, like time or traffic. Let's look at some words which use character 流. First, picture the water that never stops moving. That's 流水, which means flowing water. It's the simplest and most direct image of how water moves. Now think about emotions showing on your face. When tears move the way water does, we can say 流泪, to shed tears. Literally, it describes tears flowing down your face. And 流动 means to move or to circulate, like when people travel from place to place or when the air is moving around in a room. Now let's look at our example sentence. 水从山上流下来. Water flows down from the mountain. Here, 从 means from. 山 is the mountain, and 流下来 means flows down. You can almost picture the scene where clear mountain water is running down the rocks, sparkling in the sunlight. That's exactly what 流 expresses, the idea of smooth, continuous movement. Now let's move to the next word, which expresses something we do with water every day. 洗 means to wash. So just from the radical, you can guess that this word must have something to do with water. And that's true. 洗 is all about cleaning or washing something with water. This word is super common in daily life and it's used in many practical combinations. For example, when we talk about washing our face, we say 洗脸. That literally means to wash your face. If you are talking about doing laundry, you can say 洗衣, wash clothes. And when you are taking a shower, you'll say 洗澡, which means to take a shower or to bathe. So as you can see, 洗 appears in many daily situations. It's one of those must-know words for beginners. Once you learn it, you can easily build lots of useful phrases yourself. Let's look at an example sentence together. 吃饭前要洗手. You should wash your hands before eating. Let's break it down. 吃饭前 means before eating. 要 means should or need to. And 洗手 is to wash hands, which is another good expression for beginners. It's a simple everyday sentence, something you might hear parents say to their kids before a meal. Next, we'll look at another interesting word, 滑, which means smooth or slippery. It expresses the sense of something gliding easily, something smooth, sleek, or slippery. You can think of 滑 as the feeling of your hand gliding over glass, or when your shoes slide across a wet floor, that smooth, effortless motion. 滑 is a really interesting word because it can describe both physical surfaces and actions. For example, if you want to describe a surface that's shiny and soft, you can say 光滑, which means smooth. This character can also be used when you are talking about something you do that involves sliding or gliding, like 滑雪, which means to ski. Literally, it means to slide on snow. And if someone does slip because the floor is too slippery, we can use the phrase 滑倒, which means to slip and fall. Here, 滑 means to slide and 倒 means to fall. So together, 滑倒 literally describes that quick moment when your foot slides and you lose balance. Now let's look at our example sentence. 地上很滑，小心. The floor is slippery. Be careful. Here, 地上 means on the ground or the floor. 很滑 means very slippery. And 小心 means be careful. It's something people say all the time. For example, when it's raining outside or after cleaning the floor with water. By the way, if you visit any public place after mopping, you might see a yellow sign that says 小心地滑, caution, slippery floor. This is a great real-life example of how 滑 is used every day in Chinese. Alright, that's all for today's video. Today we've looked at a group of words which all share the same radical and relate in some way to water, liquid, or flow. And we've learned something really interesting about Chinese characters, how one small radical, the 3 drops of water, can connect so many words together. Learning radicals doesn't just help you recognize characters faster, it helps you understand them on a deeper level and see the structure behind the language. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's also learning Chinese. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. 再见.